Well, I guess I want to take a look at the the two matches coming up this week on AEW Dynamite. The finals of the first round of the TNT Championship tournament, because they're going to show Dustin Rhodes against Kip Sabian, and then Darby Allin against Sammy Guevara. And again, these are two matches that I wish wasn't happening. With all due respect, I don't think Kip Sabian should be in this tournament. They should have gotten somebody else to work with Dustin. And that's no that. It sounds like I'm digging on Kip Sabian, but it's just a matter that he hasn't been presented strong enough, and I just to put him in a championship tournament like this for a guy that has been presented as nothing more than an underneath guy, just it doesn't feel right to have him in this tournament. Um, with Darby and Sammy, I kind of have an issue with the match only because it's such a toss up match, and they're both good. I like them
That's
both.
the one thing that is true. It is a toss-up match. I don't know who's going to win this match.
And here's the thing: realistically, I think that this match, I would pick Sammy Guevara to win this match because I don't think that it would be a wise move to have a Darby Allin Cody Rhodes match where you have two baby faces. You'd want if realistically the main event or the last match of this tournament is going to be Cody against Archer. I think that it would probably be best to have Cody work against heels. You know, Sammy's gonna cheat to win. Don't get me wrong. He's not gonna beat Darby flat. He's gonna cheat.
Yeah.
Or Darby's gonna make a mistake where he does one of those really high risk moves and he just screws himself up. But I
No,
don't know.
I think it'll be blatantly he's going to cheat, and it's going to. They have a little bit of a rivalry going on.
And that's fine.
They've had plenty of moments, and I think if I don't think this is the place for the rivalry to be over with.
No, not at all.
First round of a
Not at,
tournament. So
not at
if you
all.
want that rivalry to continue, Sammy wins the match. He cheats to win. Then later on,
Darby gives him his receipt when he wrestles against
Darby
Cody.
gets the receipt, and yes, Darby can get him when he wrestles against Cody, or Cody can beat Sammy clean, and maybe he will, maybe he
Now
won't.
you want to make Sammy look strong because he's one of your guys that you're building. With all due respect, it's not that's going to make Cody Rhodes look weak, because if you're building Sammy Guevara up as one of your up and coming talents, having him lose flat to Cody doesn't make any sense, especially if he cheated against Darby and you want to keep telling that story. Darby Allin has to have some involvement, even if he just shows up at ringside. Even if he never touches him, just him showing up is more than enough to keep
Yeah,
the story going.
yeah, but I think they'll keep that. They'll restart that feud, and they'll find a better place, maybe a main event spot on Dynamite or a pay-per-view. They'll find a better place to,
Pay-per-view match.
yeah, a better place to finish the story somewhere else.
Listen, I'm of the ilk that those types of matches, that you don't give them away for free on TV, man. Make people pay for them. You
Yeah,
know, make people pay for it. I mean, listen, with all due
and I
respect,
think they have enough.
they
They
got
have,
enough content.
yeah,
They listen. They got enough guys that they can put in between the two of them, between now and whatever their next pay-per-view show is. They got more than enough bodies to put in between them. So they're the no. They shouldn't have any blow off match on free TV at all. I'd look at them and I say, nope, make people pay for it.
yeah, and I think they have. They've been presented good enough, strong enough, both
Yeah,
of them, that it's a exciting pay-per-view match.
yeah,
People want to see it.
and this is the reason why, again, when I said I didn't like this pairing in round one, because in all honesty, I don't think that Darby and Sammy should have been paired up against each other. You know, again, Sammy should have been paired up against Cody, have him lose in the first round, where it could be, a
But
flat.
maybe I think you've called the story out. I think maybe they are paired early so that they can tell this story of this little rivalry with Sammy and Darby.
I just
Um,
Yeah, it's just a matter that when I saw the Spears Cody match, I just thought they did too much, especially for a first round match. Again, this should have been. That's the reason why when I saw the brackets, I was like, you could have easily paired this differently. What I would have done is, believe it or not, this is what I probably would have done in the bracket. I would have probably moved Guevara. Uh, how would I have done this? I would have probably paired Darby Allin with Kip Sabian,
mhm,
have Dustin work against Guevara.
mhm.
Guevara would beat Dustin in round one, and then wrestle Cody in round 2. That's fine. Have the same match. And then what I would have done is I would have had Darby Allin beat Kip Sabian, and then have Darby give Archer a good match, a good effort, but then Archer crushes him just because of size. Because again, you get Darby Allin over by the heart, but at the end of the day, the guy you're pushing in this instance is Lance Archer. You know, this is the whole thing when we were talking, you know, a couple videos ago about Marco Stunt, where you're saying, how do you get Marco over? And I said, you don't, because in this case, Marco Stunt is not the guy that you're looking to get over. It's Lance Archer. Emphatically. Nothing, zero. In this case, if you was to put him against Darby Allin has to get over somehow. And the way you get him over is he puts up a hell of a fight. He does everything that he could possibly do. And he'll get hope spots. And there might be a moment where it's like, 1, 2, oh, you know, like he'll get those moments. But at the end, Archer grabs him, choke slams him, does all his power stuff. And Darby just, there's no answer. 1, 2, 3, he goes down. But yeah, the stories are being told. I think that realistically, it's going to be Cody and Archer in the end, and Archer will win. I think that realistically, you put the title on him, you know, and then if things go back to normal, I mean, Jake Roberts could just keep cutting promos because his promos are great. Archer doesn't have to say a word. Because I think
crazy. It's crazy that Jake has gone through all this shit in his life and he's still that good of a promo.
How
can you still do that?
The thing that really amazes me about Jake Roberts is the fact that WWE didn't pick him up to work in the Performance Center. How good would he be working? Because
I think he let them down 1 too many times, or maybe 5 too many times.
Well, listen, maybe, but you know, in all honesty, when I know that Jake was working with Dallas and that he got clean with Dallas, and you know, with him and Scott Hall, and Scott Hall's working with WWE, I would have brought Jake Roberts too. It would not have been a matter like, oh, I want to hoard the talent. I'm like, look at the mind this man has. Can you imagine Jake Roberts coaching Killer Cross?
Yes.
Coaching him, not being on camera, just coaching him.
Yeah, because you know what's funny? There's a similar aura. There's a similar aura. I feel like the way Jake speaks, I feel like Killer Cross looks the way Jake speaks.
But Vic, this is the reason why I'm saying that with Lance Archer, I understand what AEW is trying to do with him. I don't know in the long haul if he's going to be if he's going to be the money drawing big man.
No. I don't think they see that either. I think they want to use him. They want to, just like Hager, just like MJF's boy, all these big guys that they have, these big heels. I think they want to.
Wardlow could be if he turns babyface and he can work really well. Because think about it, when you look at Wardlow, he kind of has a resemblance to one Mr. Roman Reigns.
Oh yeah,
he has a resemblance. You know.
Hey, you know what? You build all these big guys up, and you keep them strong enough. You find sneaky ways, like they did with Hager. You find sneaky ways to beat them that it doesn't hurt them, and they don't look too bad when they do eventually lose. And you kind of hide them until you need them. But I think they like when they have big man against big man, so when you have Luchasaurus against Wardlow and Wardlow against Hager and Hager against Archer or whatever, all of those big guys working with each other, the fans just love to see that. And I think everyone backstage is like, we need to see all these big man matchups, but we need to keep them all strong at the same time for as long as possible. Yeah. And I think that's it. Oh, and now Brody Lee too is a new big man.
I will say that Brody Lee. The thing is, I'm going to keep saying it until I'm proven wrong. Brody Lee's a rehab project. You know, because a lot of what they're doing with Brody Lee is based on promos. You know, he's had squash matches, which is fine. That's the right thing to do with him. His promos are basically him making fun of Vince McMahon. You know, which, you know, again,
I'm okay with this. This is not. No. It's making fun of Vince McMahon, but it's not really making fun of Vince McMahon. He has a character, and his job, you know, his character is in charge of this cult, whatever. He's like a cult leader or however you want to call it. And I think in wrestling, and I think more wrestlers need to look at this because it's it seems to always work. Jericho does it a lot. He takes phrases or, he delivers a message. And then when you ask him, how did you come up with that? Oh, I saw it in a movie.
Mhm.
Or I have a friend that speaks just like that. And it's like, if you have something to pull from,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and Vince McMahon's all the famous stories about Vince McMahon and what bothers him, it makes Vince McMahon interesting. It makes him an interesting character.
He's the greatest heel character in the history of
Yes,
professional
but the
wrestling.
real Vince McMahon is very interesting when you hear how he is, and it's like if you can take some of those ideas and incorporate them into your own character, because he's not making fun of Vince McMahon because then he's burying himself, and that's not what he's doing. He's creating this interesting heel character that everyone's gonna hate, hopefully, because he's such a dick, and it's like, really, you're complaining about me sneezing? It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Well,
And yes, the idea came from Vince McMahon,
but the thing
but
is
I think that's a good thing.
But the thing about I guess for me, it's like the thing about it is that it seems a little too inside. That's all it is.
No, but if it's inside and you get it that it's Vince McMahon, good for you. Then you're like more of a Deadpool, break the fourth wall fan, and good for you. Then you get to enjoy it in that way. But a fan who doesn't know anything about Vince McMahon and they see this character for what it is, and they go, "Oh my god, this guy is so fucking weird. Like, what's wrong with this guy? He's such an ass." And they're just like, he's losing it. But at least he has like, there's things about his personality that are defined, and now you know. And that's the hard part with wrestling, right? It feels like that's the one thing that Vince Russo did well. He gave everyone defined personality traits, right? Like, this character does this. This is how this character behaves, and that's you can't change that unless something drastic happens. We'll tell the story of how to change it.
Pro wrestling has only been about three basic things: who are you, what do you do, and why should I care? That's it.
Yeah.
Nothing more, nothing less.
And I think Brody Lee is giving you a little thing, like, he's adding little things to this character so that you know who this character is. It's not Brody Lee, but it's a character that he's creating, and hopefully, like, because we don't really know shit about Archer except that he's a badass.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? With Archer, they talk about all his run in Japan and everything, and again, I say this with all due respect. I understand that they're pulling from, from his realistic past. The issue that I take on with that is that maybe with AEW this might not apply, but I think that for most general wrestling fans, I guess the general audience, they don't watch New Japan. They have no idea what he did in Japan. So unless you're going to show footage of it, then mentioning it almost seems a little bit like, all right, who cares? Because he wrestled in TNA 15 years ago, and he was presented as an underneath comedy guy. Mm-hmm. He went to Japan and rehabbed himself, but he was there for a decade. And for mainland U.S. wrestling fans, Lance Hoyt, Lance Archer, whatever name you want to come up with, whatever.
And the reality is that him looking so different and having a different name from Lance Hoyt, they almost don't feel like the same person.
No,
and that's why they're able to present him so strongly, and everyone's excited for it. Because if they were presenting Lance Hoyt from even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, no one would be excited.
No,
but
he would.
The new look, like I said, his work has improved, and he's found ways to have very fun matches. And yeah, he really did figure something out in the last year. And I think everyone is like, at least the people in AEW, I think they saw that and they're like, oh, this guy has a lot more to bring to the table. Let's get him and let's do some fun stuff with him. And yeah, I agree with what you said earlier. Killer Cross is probably better, but who knows what happened there? Maybe they did try to get Killer Cross. Maybe he
listen, anybody that's worth their salt would have definitely made him an
Yeah,
offer.
maybe just WWE maybe offered more money, or maybe he's a diehard WWE fan since he was a baby.
Maybe
Who knows?
he just wanted to go to the big show and just say
Yeah,
like,
like a Kevin Owens is probably a guy who fits perfectly in AEW. He might never leave WWE because he's been a WWE fan his whole life. And good luck on changing his mind.
Well, I think that probably if his boys were to leave, meaning like let's say that Sami Zayn and Cesaro were to go, then you might be able to yank them.
It depends in what way too. Like if WWE shits on Sami Zayn and Cesaro, I can see Kevin Owens having the type of personality be like, "What? Really? Well, fuck yeah!" Like he does have that type of personality. You can piss him off and scare him away that way. Like you can push him away, absolutely. Yeah, but if you take care of them, and they have Kevin Owens, even though you might not like some of the booking, he's been in. I think he had his WrestleMania 4 T-shirt this year. So right?
I don't know if it was 3 or 4, but
I think it was 4. But I'll have
WrestleMania 4, yeah.
So he's been in 4 WrestleManias and he's had matches, and I'm shocked that they keep finding ways to get him onto the card. That tells me that someone likes his work a lot because they keep finding ways to get him on the card in prominent roles, and he gets to wear a new WrestleMania shirt every year.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen,
when he doesn't get to wear that WrestleMania 5 or 6 or 7 for a couple years straight, that's when it might be time to go.
Oh, I got you. No, I don't think that's gonna happen, man.
I think they respect his work.
No, Kevin Owens is a major player within WWE. He's not going anywhere anytime.
Yeah, I think he's well taken care of.
No, he's believe me that it'll behoove WWE. He's too good of a talent to not do it. So yeah, and then from here, we'll see what goes with AEW. The only one match that was announced for NXT next week. Obviously, you have Balor and Velveteen Dream, which I think is going to be fantastic. That's going to be I'm looking forward to that. Then they have that women's tag team match with Shotzi Blackheart and Tegan Knox against Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. I don't see much happening in that match. I think that match is going to be
This is a situation where you're going to have people who probably shouldn't be on TV yet in a match.
Correct.
Look, back to what you were saying earlier. I can understand if you think there's people who shouldn't be on TV because you don't like them. Like who you said earlier? You said Jimmy Havoc. Even if you don't think he fits in for the mainstream television, if you ask the wrestling community, he's a great worker. He can work. He's a veteran of more than a decade.
But here's the thing. I mean, to me,
he's not a rookie learning how to work.
No, not at all. But what I'm saying is that when I see a guy like Jimmy Havoc, when I saw him work, I don't know if it was against Kenny Omega or Cody Rhodes. I know he worked a match with them. In the beginning, I was like, this guy was wrestling. And then I think to myself, I'm like, all right, if this guy knows the ABCs of pro wrestling and he can work, then why must you always use the staple guns and use all these silly gimmicks? Again, it's one thing when you do it in the indie scene where you're dealing with a niche audience and you're dealing with a certain audience that wants to see certain things. Once you come up to national television, he's not going to be able to do that on TNT. He's just not. That's the reality. Now, you take that.
I don't know if that's fully true. They've done some interesting things on TNT. TNT gives them pretty good leeway.
Not that far, bro. Not that far.
But he doesn't have to do it on television, but you can know that there's an edge to his character, and you can know that on pay-per-view he might do it. Yeah, I'm okay with him being hardcore or however you want to call it. I'll tell you why. I don't need everyone to wrestle the same style, and if we're gonna wrestle TV style, which is basically WWE style, I'm bored of WWE style, and I don't want to see those guys anymore. I'm sorry. I don't want to see a bunch of guys who work the same style. It doesn't have to be every week, but I do want a guy who can have a brawl. I do want a guy who can have a comedy match, if it's under the right circumstances. Somebody you trust.
They have a lot of comedy guys in AEW. They really do. Probably too many, quite frankly.
Yeah, probably, but you don't see those guys that often.
Well, but they spring. I mean, listen, I think a guy like Colt Cabana, even though he's been labeled as a comedy wrestler,
he can work his ass off.
He can work it exactly. So what I'm saying is, with a guy like Cabana, he can use this opportunity to uh, maybe be a little less comedic. He could still have elements of it, but here's the
Well,
thing: you have Kenny Omega, who's unintentionally funny in the ring, unintentionally, because I don't think that's his purpose. That's not what he's trying to do. Um, you look at somebody like Orange Cassidy, like the Best Friends, that whole gimmick.
mhm.
Trent Beretta doesn't try to do it, but when he's in there with, Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor, it's a comedy act. Um, that's and the thing is, they're looked at as one of the top acts. If Michael Nakazawa is on television, another comedy player.
Which is rare though, but he's
But
rarely on television.
but the thing is that a guy like Nakazawa, with all due respect, shouldn't be on TV.
Well, but he can also work his ass off. Everybody. I don't think it's fair to say that this guy shouldn't be on TV just because he's a funny guy.
Here's the
But what's
thing,
wrong with having a character that's funny every now and then?
because here's the reason why. I don't think Nakazawa's funny at all. I think
Okay.
all the stuff he does is goofy with no necessary purpose. None.
Right.
So
He's a goofy guy, but he's an endearing guy.
Okay. Not to
And
me.
he's
Not to me.
also no, not to you, but you like your stuff a little bit more serious. But he shows up on TV maybe once a month. He has a match on TV once every quarter, maybe. And then when you do see him, he's usually being used against Kenny Omega. It's like, if Kenny Omega, like Pat, give me what I want, or I'll beat your friend up that everybody loves and is a goofball.
But you figure that Nakazawa, even if he's a goofball, he's a pro wrestler. He should be able to defend himself. Even if he loses, he should be able to defend himself.
Yeah, he
That's
should.
that's the thing. I understood when he did it with Riho, and that was so poorly executed, because I'm like, he could get away with that with Riho, right? Because Riho's so tiny, even though she's a wrestler too, she's so tiny that Pat could be able to get away with it. And it was just that was poorly executed. But that's so far in the past. I'm not even going to bring that up. Like dive into it. But it's a matter that, again, there's certain characters that, for me, you can, like, in the past when WWE had Santino Marella or TNA had Eric Young, guys like that, those were comedy characters that you knew they were not going to be top money draws, but they were really endearing. And those are characters that you can get endeared to. And here's the thing: the reason why it made it kind of unique is because they were the only one on the show. They were the only one on the show that did what
Yeah.
they did.
But let me ask you a question. What's more realistic? Having a locker room with 100 people and only one person being funny, or having a locker room with 100 people and 10 of them being funny?
On television, I would
No. What's more realistic? Since you like your wrestling real, what's more realistic?
but realistic meaning what? In television
What
presentation
is more?
or in
What is
real
more
life?
possible? What's in real life?
Oh no, definitely you're gonna have 10 comedians in the locker room. That's definitely
Exactly. It's
that's
more
sure.
realistic to have these guys with personality instead of having a bunch of robots with no personality.
But here's the thing. The thing is, they can be comedians in real life in the locker room. Of course, that's what, if you didn't have that, it'd be a boring locker room. But at the same time, you can't have all those guys on TV presented that way. That's
I
just the
mean, I
thing.
think the only one that
Just because here's the thing. The reason why I say that is because I don't think that even if they're 10 comedians, they're not all going to get over that way. There's a saying in wrestling: funny ain't money. You can have one or two guys or girls that can be the comedy characters, and that's fine, because if those characters can get endeared with the audience, then they're going to be able to be very well placed on the card in those roles. But if you have, 10 guys in the locker room that all want to come out and be goofy or funny in different ways, then the seriousness of the presentation of professional wrestling gets dimmed down. It's okay if you have one guy that is a good worker but is funny and does goofy stuff and makes the audience laugh. That's fine. I got no problem with that. But give me one guy 2 at the most. And the thing about it is that even though they're comedy characters, there's got to be some serious nature to them, something. Nakazawa has nothing.
Nakazawa, but he's the only one with that. Like, okay, the best example right now in AEW is
The one
Orange
that gets the most,
Cassidy. Orange Cassidy is the best, probably comedic character, and they presented him as a comedic character.
and it should be the only one.
Why?
It should be the only one.
Why?
Because here's the thing, right? If you have Nakazawa, and again, Nakazawa, if like let's say that Nakazawa and Orange Cassidy were a team, I could buy that because they're packaged together. Fine. I could buy them packaged as a team. They'll have comedy matches where Nakazawa does the oil thing, and then Orange Cassidy with, and doing all his silly stuff. I could buy that. But when you put them in 2 separate acts, and again, when you put Nakazawa next to Kenny Omega, who is purported to be one of the top stars, one of the top wrestlers in the world, and one of AEW's top flight talents, doesn't look right. And it's not a matter of Nakazawa and Kenny Omega from a talent perspective. It's just a matter of the way they're presented. That's all it is.
Yeah, see, with me, it's like, I don't think anyone is. I think, yes, there is comedy. I think Michael Nakazawa is the one who's full-blown comedy at, and he's a jobber, like, basically. He's never gonna win. He's never gonna win a match, and I think he was brought in to lose matches. And
tag teaming with Kenny Omega. They keep putting him in high-profile spots when he shouldn't be.
No, but he's not. He really isn't. If you can't be in a high-profile spot if you're only on television. He's been on television maybe 5 times, it feels like, since it started.
No, listen, I'm not arguing that. But look at the times he's been on television.
Yeah, it's because it's usually Kenny Omega related.
And the thing about it is that even if they're best friends in real life, again, there are other ways to use him, and that relationship should not be associated on television. Because Kenny Omega is a top star. And when you,
I think that's messed up to say that a top star can't have a friend who's silly. He's a top star. That's not. You're
trying to draw money, dude. All I'm saying is, if you're trying to draw money,
I would
not do that unless I have a plan to bring Nakazawa up, and he could be goofy and funny, but there's something about him that I have a plan to bring him up. Unless as a company I'm willing to do that, I wouldn't associate them.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. Like, I think it's time. Wrestling has been a little too simple. I think it's okay to make an interesting character. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. To make a character who maybe maybe Kenny Omega's flaw is that he has a silly friend. Maybe that's one of his flaws, because it's going to be hard to beat him. Besides, if you don't use this silly friend against him. I don't see nothing wrong with that. And I also think it's the way they presented their comedy. Like, even Colt Cabana, they've only used them for a couple of weeks.
No, and Cabana, and the thing is, Cabana is different. Cabana is a completely different story, because Cabana, you could present Cabana any which way you want to. Because Cabana looks like a dude is big. He's
240. He's he's a big guy.
He's a big guy.
He likes to have a good time. But if he's in trouble, he's not gonna try to like against Archer. He was in trouble the whole match. He didn't have time to be silly.
He's not trying to be goofy.
He wasn't gonna be goofy because there's really no time for it. So he's a little bit more on the serious side. Now Orange Cassidy is gonna be funny, and then the point of the character is almost like, if you put him in trouble, all of a sudden it's like, shit, wait, does he have to be serious now? And if he's serious, the one time he was serious, he blew it out of the water. I don't know if you saw this when he fought Pac.
I didn't watch the match with Pac, but
okay, that was the match that everyone was talking about.
Okay,
maybe you would have not liked it. Maybe you would have not liked it. I'm not saying that you would have liked it, because I'm not in your mind.
No, and again, I'm just a fact that the way that AEW presented Pac, again, I understand the psychology. What AEW wants to do is they want to use the guys that they present as big stars and utilize them to bring up the guys underneath. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is either the booking is not strong enough for those top guys to where they can either take a loss or have the guy underneath give them a good effort and they get elevated. I think the only time that ever really succeeded is when they did it with Darby Allin when he had the draw with Cody Rhodes. That match established Darby Allin. But other than that, I don't really know of too many other examples where that has actually worked within AEW.
Well, then that's weird then, because almost everyone is over
So
on the show. The only one that's probably not over is probably like a Michael Nakazawa. For obvious reasons, not everyone's gonna like that weird type of
don't get me wrong. When I look at the best friends, I understand that to that audience, they love it. I think Trent.
I don't think they love the best friends. I think they love Orange Cassidy.
Trent Beretta is a talent that should be a singles. Chuck Taylor's a guy that they could go without. Listen, for my flavor, I'm not a fan of Orange Cassidy because again, it's a goofy gimmick and it's a little too goofy for my flavor. But if he was the only one on the show, then maybe I could swallow it.
Well, here's the thing.
The only one on the show.
I think he's almost unanimously. If you go to an AEW show, he's beloved. Orange Cassidy is probably gonna have. He has one of the highest selling T-shirts, and I think it is not good for a company to have an act that's super over, and for them to just ignore it, and to go, okay, it's not traditional wrestling, so we're just not gonna push it.
But the thing is, with a guy like Orange Cassidy, is that there seems to be. I would like them to kind of peel some layers on Orange Cassidy, maybe get him to talk. Maybe put him in like the situation that they put with Pac was a perfect situation for Orange Cassidy to the week prior to that pay-per-view to be able to cut a promo, cut the goofy crap out for that 1 second, and show that there's an intense side. Then he could do all the goofy stuff, but I know the Hulk lives inside if you get it out. But he didn't do it.
He didn't do it, but he delivered on that match.
Okay, listen, I didn't see the match, so I can't comment one way or the other. It's just a matter that, again, I look at a guy like Pac, where they have him. Do I necessarily think that he should have been working against Orange Cassidy? Probably not, but I didn't see the match, so I'm not going to go one way or the other.
I assure you that everyone left that match, in terms of the talent in the ring, everyone was more over after that match than they were before that match.
Nah. I think I may
argue. You didn't even see it. How could you know?
No. The only reason why I may argue for Pac not getting over is just because of the fact that then they booked him in another faction with the Lucha Brothers, which I was like, that's unnecessary. Those are two acts that don't need to be living together at all.
Yeah,
and the fact that they unified them. When they unified them together, that came across to me as a bad sign. Even it came across to me that way, because the Lucha Brothers do their own thing, and they have a fan base that loves them. Pac is great as a singles. There's no reason to put them together as a trio. None. When I saw that in the aftermath of that pay-per-view, I didn't see the match. So again, I'm just saying, I'm only going by what I saw, and I can only surmise one thing on top of the other and be like, maybe Pac didn't get over that great in this match, but I didn't see it. But I'm just going by what I saw in the storytelling moving forward. And I'm like, if a guy gets over strong as a singles, you're not putting him in a faction right away, especially in a company that already has one too many factions.
Well, one too many factions for your taste.
Oh, absolutely.
Because New Japan is only factions. There's nobody who's not in a faction. And some people like that, some people don't.
I say this with all due respect. The thing is, when I watched New Japan, when they were showed here in the United States, realistically, they only featured maybe the same 8, 10, 12 talents. So I didn't really know the entire New Japan roster. Like, I knew whoever the top 10 or 12 guys were, those are the guys that I knew. So I know that they have like Roppongi Vice, and they have, the Ingobernables that they go from Japan and Mexico and all that. But the thing is that I know that the factions exist, but when the wrestlers compete, I don't get the sense that they're part of a faction. I just get the sense that they're their own individual performer.
Yeah,
So when I see it on television.
I get it.
So
I'm just saying again, realistically, anywhere you go where there's a lot of people, if you're in school and there's 200 students, there's crews.
yeah,
The
but
same people sit at the
fair
same
point.
table. If you go to jail, there's crews.
I don't want
It
to go
is
to jail.
not realistic. You like the wrestling real. It is not realistic for everyone to not have friends and be individuals. That would never happen in a million years.
Yeah, but
That would
still,
never happen. Even in MMA, you have your crews.
okay, that's totally fine. But at the end of the day, like you see, WWE has 300 wrestlers according to you,
And no one has a
and there's,
friend.
there's no fact. Well,
Of course, there's
outside of
some.
Undisputed Era,
Yeah, of course there's some teams and some 3-man situations.
but what I'm saying is that with AEW, they have the inner circle, which is obviously there. That's the top tier.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the elite, which again, I think that the elite is more of a thing that came from that's the Bullet Club group that came, and then they just called them because they called themselves the elite in Japan. They brought that to the United States. I think that realistically, even though there's no way they can separate that now because they came in like that, but I think that all of those guys, you have 4 top acts there, for that audience, because you have Cody, Hangman, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks. Those are 4 top acts for that audience, and to unify them and try to do too much with them as a cohesive unit, I think that they shouldn't be a quote unquote group like that until it's time to get together. Meaning you have like the inner circle, they get over, they kick Cody's ass, they kick Omega's ass, they kick Hangman's ass, they kick the Young Bucks ass without the others coming to help initially. It's just that in stories, you start building that up until the elite have to come together because they realize that as individuals in one-on-one matches against Jericho, Guevara, Hager, LAX, it doesn't matter. They can't win because they're outnumbered. And that's how you tell that story. When you bring the elite together, then it's like, oh snap, they're all together and they're fighting as a group, and then you can tell a better story. That's all it is there. Again, with the Dark Order, they're underneath guys. Brody Lee is trying to elevate them. Let's see what happens. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because Brody Lee's only been there for a month, so I'm not gonna declare victory or defeat there for those guys.
Yeah, that's chapter
No,
1.
no.
Their
That's
chapter for the Dark Order started once he started.
yeah, but and the thing is with the Dark Order, I didn't like the way they were presented. Now they're the number 1 contenders for the tag team titles, which I'm like, I don't know how they're 5-0. I don't know how many matches they won unless they're all on AEW Dark. But and as far as I'm concerned, those matches don't count. Present it on TV. Just if you want to present the Dark Order as like a, like the top tier unit, then have Evil Uno and Stu Grayson wrestle more on Dynamite, even if it's squash matches. Have them win. Present them on TV. That's the thing. It's like tell me who your top acts are. And you may not be able to fit them all in, but can you at least say like, hey, last night on AEW Dark, such and such happened. That takes 1 minute, if that, 30 seconds. It's just tell me what it is, because when I hear the standings for the top 5s of everything, I'm just like, I scratch my head sometimes like, really? This person? But I'm like, it's wrestling. You can manipulate it any way you want, so if the Dark Order
I mean, they are sticking to those records.
Yeah, it's just a matter they don't present the matches on TV, which is that.
No, I think they do. But if the Dark Order has 5 wins in a row, but that might be 5 wins in a row within a span of 3 months, 4 months. So,
but okay, that's fine. That's fine.
You can't have like look at Jake Hager. Jake Hager, I think, is 5-0, or now he's 5-1 for the year. But
he's 4-1 for this year, and he's 5-1 overall because he won 1 match last year. I think that was the match against Dustin Rhodes.
Yeah, so I think it's hard to have a shitload of matches. The workhorses is like a John Moxley, and he probably is in the 10 match range right now.
And
And
the thing is, for a guy like Moxley, Moxley shouldn't be working all the time. Realistically, a guy like Moxley as the champion, he can cut promos because he's such a good promo. He doesn't need to be. He doesn't need to wrestle as often as he does. Like, let's say this television match he had last week against Hager, that'll be the last time you see him wrestle until the next time you got to pay to watch him wrestle on pay-per-view. Because if
no,
you got,
I'm okay with that.
yeah, because you got a big enough roster, Moxley could just cut promos.
And also, they don't have a contender for him anyway.
Correct. So he
You
doesn't
kind of build up the next guy. Who's next?
So what I'm saying is that within the TV time, there are ways where if you have certain, like when I see the Dark Order as the number one contenders for the tag team titles, I laugh only because for the last 8 months before Brody Lee showed up 4 weeks ago, the Dark Order were presented as underneath, like almost jokes of talent. They just keep talking about this exalted one. Brody Lee shows up, and I'm like, okay, business has picked up slightly for this group. I think it's a rehab project, and this can go either way. I'm pulling for Brody Lee because I like him, and I thought that he got misused in WWE, so I'm pulling for him to do well in AEW. But at the same time, I'm like, he wasn't given exactly the greatest spot to start off with. So it's a rehab project for everybody. But the thing is, I've never seen the Dark Order win a match, ever.
Yeah, but I assure you, they have one on TV.
Oh,
I remember seeing the wins in a row. I remember seeing it
on Dynamite or
on Dynamite. I remember watching it. Okay. Now, yes, the focus as soon as Brody Lee got there, the storytelling became Brody Lee. Like, we need to tell this story now.
And that's the right thing to do. And that's the right
kind of and maybe if there was fans, maybe they would have. But I think the not having fans has slowed down some of the stories, and that has changed directions a little bit.
And that's totally fine. And I think a recommendation for AEW would be is, until fans come back, don't tell me who the standings. Like, just don't present that. Because when I see the records of the people who are on the top 5, it leaves a little to be desired. And it kind of makes me chuckle a little bit. Don't present it. I understand you want to do it as a sports-based presentation, but you don't have to do it on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, however you do it. You don't have to. Be judicious with it. Present it again when it's going to lead to some kind of storyline that seems believable to the audience. Do it then. You don't need to do it all the time. That's all.
I mean, like I always say, you if you establish rules within your show, not rules like you're not allowed to do this or do that, but if you say, I'm going to do something, we as a show we're gonna do something, I'd rather you stick to it and figure it out. Me personally, I mean, they don't have to do the records every single week. No, absolutely not. I think they do the records well. I think that top team or top act, whatever, that number 1, number 2, is usually you kind of start seeing them ascending to that match. Now, whether or not that means that they're going to win that big match, they probably aren't, or they are, who knows. But I think you kind of see it. You see it playing out. It's harder now. Yes, I agree. Ever since they lost the fans, I think they've had to stop and start some stories because they don't have all their talent. Some people, they had to adjust who's in what role. Like, they almost tagging people in, like, okay, this is Nyla Rose's spot. We don't have her for a couple months. Who's gonna have that spot now?
Yeah,
it's tricky, but what can you do?
I just hope that at some point that AEW, if they really feel inclined to do this, I don't know if maybe Nyla Rose doesn't want this to be presented on TV, but the most interesting part of Nyla Rose's story is the fact that she's transgender. It's the most interesting part of her story, and it's never talked about.
I don't think they want to prostitute that, and I don't think I would either.
No,
I think I'd rather her character. Yes, outside of like I tell JR when we have our one-on-one discussions, when you're outside of the bubble, you talk about those things. I think within the bubble, she's not transgender. I think within the bubble, she's just a woman wrestling during the show. They've mentioned it early on. They mentioned it, and then they were like, "That's it." Um,
Well,
I
okay.
don't need it. I don't need it. I
Neither
think
do I. I just think that that's probably the most interesting part
it
of her.
is the it is the most interesting thing, but it also opens you up for a bunch of criticism. Like, oh, but if because people can't see that it's a show. Some people think, it's not a show. That's a man beating up a woman or a former man beating up a woman,
It's true.
even though it's obviously a work and they're working together and no one's gonna get. You can get hurt, but a guy fighting a guy,
Not intentionally. Not
yes, it's
intentionally.
not intentional. She's not trying to hurt anyone, and also it doesn't matter, right? Because it's predetermined. Like we already know who's gonna win. Like so, her being transgender and she used to be a man and probably has the strength of a man or used to have the strength of a man or the bone structure of a man doesn't really matter, right? Because our characters can be whatever we need them to be. So she
Um, all, I,
she
all I'm saying is that for Nyla Rose's character, when she comes back and she's available, AEW, the way that I would say, if you're going to keep her as a heel, then she's got to start running through people. She's got to have some run of dominance because Sheeta should be fed to her. Sheeta can give a good match, but she's gonna lose. If you're gonna bring Riho back for a rematch, fine. Riho has to go down. None of this 20-minute, no. 5 minutes, maybe 6 or 7. Riho gives a half decent match, but Nyla Rose runs her over. And you can tell the story because Nyla Rose is good enough to tell the story that, hey, I've been sitting home for the last few months and I've just got all this pent up frustration, and she's just gonna run through everybody. At some point, some baby face will get to her because Britt Baker's not going to be the person.
no.
Britt Baker's not going to be the person. She's going to be doing her own thing.
The next heel up.
She's going to be off somewhere else. And then whenever
You know what's funny? Britt Baker's fine right now. I kind of like the way everything they're doing with her. She comes out, talks shit, pisses people off, and goes about her business. I kind of like that.
Yeah, okay. From a character perspective, yes. The thing that bothers me is that she doesn't win enough. That's the thing. She has to win more. That's all it is.
I mean, she wins. She wins more than anyone except Sheeta right now.
Well,
Sheeta's the person who's given her a couple of losses.
Well, here's the thing though. Again, if you're taking a look, it's like I'm looking at future. Like I can understand why they had. I could have had Britt Baker should have won that match with Sheeta, if for nothing else to break her win streak. Now you have another story to tell because now Sheeta's going to be hot at Britt Baker and she wants to get that receipt back. Britt Baker could just be a heel and be like, "Nope, I'm not wrestling you again. I beat you." Blah blah blah, and just keep that going. And then Sheeta could just, beat the next 5 women, and then she could work against Britt Baker again. Then she beats Britt Baker. But that's after Britt Baker's already won maybe another 4 or 5 matches in a row as well. Yeah. So then you trade off those matches. That's all it is. Because really, again, I said this earlier, and then I guess this will be worked out later on. But if you had to really look at who's going to make money for AEW, you have a better shot with Britt Baker than you do with Hikaru Shida. It just is what it is.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So this is the reason why.
But I think this is the good thing about AEW. Like, I know when I said for WWE, when certain people are given the spotlight, and if they don't capitalize, to me, in WWE, it's over. You're gonna have to work super duper hard to rehab.
Yes,
Britt
sir.
Baker has lost it. Yes, absolutely. She's lost 5 matches or whatever it is. But for some reason, I still see her as a big deal. Like I see her stronger now than I did 6 months ago.
Well,
I think it's still some trajectory upward, some momentum for her. Even when she loses, I still see her growth, and I see her working towards the title.
No, I get that. It's just a matter that now with her character that she's hot now. You want, again, she won this week. Guess what? On this week's show, Britt Baker should wrestle again against some other no-name girl.
She probably will too, because I don't.
and beat her. But the thing is with Britt Baker is that you want her to win the way that she's winning. 2-minute squash matches, 3-minute squash matches where she literally gives her 2 or 3 shots. The girl's all messed up. And then she could go cut a little promo, look at the camera and say, you see Tony, blah, 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 and then cut a promo on Shivani, go back in the ring, hit her finish, 1, 2, 3, done. It's entertaining. She could cut her little promo. Like I said, she's easy on the eyes. So it's not like you're going to be like, oh, please change the channel. No, she's a pretty woman. You know, she's articulate. She could cut her promos. Again, bell to bell is not the smoothest. She's still green. That's fine because she's gotten her character over that it means more to me. Her character means more to me than Hikaru Shida's wrestling work.
Yeah, and a baby face who you see them struggling in the ring.
Can't work is bad.
Yeah, it's something like it's like a huge turnoff. But when a heel kind of messes up in the ring, it's like ha, that's what you get.
Yeah,
it works in your favor almost. It's like
I think that with Britt Baker when she first started in AEW, they screwed her up too because she could have been a top flight babyface for them. But I think that it actually worked out to her favor, switching her heel.
Yep.
The thing is that the reason why they switched her heel is because as a babyface, she lost to everybody. So obviously she gets mad and she turns heel. Well, you can't have her be heel and continue losing. She has to start.
But she legitimately has the most wins out of anyone besides Shida.
Okay, so, that's fine. But is she like what 7-5? Like that's what I'm talking.
Probably something like that. Yeah.
But here's the thing, right? A 7-5 record with all again. It's all a matter if you're trying to present her and move her up. That 7-5 has to turn to 8-5, 9-5, 10-5, 11-5, 12-5, maybe 12-6, 12-7, then 13-7, blah blah blah. Like she has to have emphatically more wins than losses in order to build her up. And and again, they could put her in the ring against all those the wrestling school kids that they got. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. She doesn't have to beat all the top flight stars. That would be silly. Just have her pad up her record against, the underneath people. And then from there, tell that story, keep it going.
Yeah. So she's 10-7. So yeah, she needs to gain some momentum for sure.
Yeah, listen, that 10-7, let's put it like this. She'd have to probably get to 13 or 14 before that 7 turns to 8.
Yeah, I think that's the direction they're going in. Same thing with Shawn Spears. I think Shawn Spears.
No, I don't know. Winning a lot, but the thing is that they don't show it on TV. That's the issue.
Well, no, Spears actually was losing a lot, and they didn't show it on TV they were and weren't, because he was on Dark and he was on Dynamite.
And that's the thing. Anything on AEW Dark, I'm sorry, with all due respect, the only people.
No, I know. I mean, I watched Dark. I watched Dark.
But what I'm saying is that the people that watch AEW Dark on YouTube is going to be almost primarily the AEW audience that's already into all things AEW. If you want to promote a guy one way or the other, you want that to be on television, because at that point you can have a casual fan that just accidentally turns on to TNT. They're not going to do that on YouTube. They're just not. So
yeah, but there really isn't that many casual fans in the world anymore. Only super old people. Which yes, they're important.
That might be the case.
They're important too. But
listen, that might be the case. But at the end of the day, again, I'm just saying that I'm a guy that consumes wrestling a zillion different ways, and it's like if I'm going to be told, like let's say that AEW only aired on YouTube, that would be different. But they're on national television. Tell me who your stars are, and please do not do it on AEW Dark.
But I don't think they do it on AEW Dark. AEW Dark is an extension, and it's almost like a way to patent people's stats. Because realistically, you're not gonna get the stats are not gonna be. You're not gonna be able to make them feel impressive unless you get a lot of matches in. You can't get a lot of matches in 2 hours a week.
This is why you don't do the record. It's not as often. That's all it is, man.
The records, I'm okay with the records. They haven't turned me off yet. Maybe they will one day, but as of the way it's been, it's more. I see the number one. I only see the one name on the top, maybe the second name if someone's surging, making their way towards the top. I see the name on the top when Moxley was number one. I was like, oh shit, Moxley's number one.
No,
And
that
what happened?
is me
And
wrong.
then his presentation matched his ranking.
Yeah,
So,
of course.
yeah, so it made sense to me. And as long as the stories are being told and you're living up to, and you can play with it, right? Because it's based on, it's like almost like college strength of schedule, right? If you win 5 in a row against 5 jobbers, we have the choice, right? We can present it how we want to. We can say this person's 5-0, and we can leave it at that, or we can have an excuse. Yes, this person's 4-1 in the one spot. The person in the second spot is 5-0, but some of those wins weren't against quality opponents. So you can always manipulate it, to tell your stories however you want to tell them.
It's pro wrestling. You certainly could do that. This is the reason why I love professional sports, because wins and losses are it, no matter who you play against. In football or in baseball, you could play in a bad division and just pad up your wins. You'll still get the number one spot when you go in the playoffs, but if you had an easy schedule, you'll get bumped out in the first round when you start playing against the stiff competition.
No, absolutely. Sport, that's why, that's the fun part about sports, right? Even though sometimes there's some
college sports
shenanigans. There's some shenanigans there too, but
listen, my issue with college sports has always been is that they use the strength of schedule more as a way to determine who gets to be in the college football playoffs and all this, but it's really depending. It has nothing to do with that. Those records can be similar, but it's always meant to be about who are the big money players, who are the big TV ratings people, who are going to make us money at the end of the day in college sports, particularly football. All the other sports are based on records, wins and losses. Whether they're you played against tomato cans or you played against quality opponents, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can have in football, you could be 14-2. You go into the playoffs and you get bumped out in your first game because you won 9 of them against bad opponents.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. Absolutely. But you know what? When I think about these records, I think about it's tricky for wrestling to do the records. But there's a way, and because AEW doesn't seem to be that far away. I don't think that many people are turned off by the records. I'm not bothered by these records at all. I don't know anyone besides you that's bothered by the records.
I think I'll let you finish and then I'll give.
But for let's just say if they had to do the records, I could see why it's tricky because it's not the same as, let's say, MMA. In MMA, you have records, and in the UFC, it feels like a lot of guys are over, right? If it was wrestling, they have a lot of people who are big stars and people care about these. But their records are, and that's like you say, they're impressive records. You might have a guy who's 20-2, and they have a lot of guys who have these really impressive records. The only difference between MMA and wrestling is that they had to beat people to get to 20-2. And in wrestling, there's only but so many people that you could just beat up on and it doesn't hurt them. You have your enhancement talent, but you can't. Nobody wants to see a show where it's just enhancement match after enhancement match after enhancement match.
No, because you can't do that anymore.
In MMA, when UFC presents their pay-per-views, we didn't see Donald Cerrone's first 10 fights because they happened in shitty shows, for promotion that didn't matter. So he was 10-0 when he got to the company. So it's tricky. So that's why you kind of get the weird records in AEW. But I think if you use it to present the top people, the number one spot, I think you can do it right.
I think the reason why I'm a little turned off by the records is because when they show top 5, after you get past number 2, you have people that are either 500 or sub 500 in there. And
I don't like sub 500 people being in.
And the thing is, when you have people, even if you're at 500, you shouldn't be top 5 because you're losing as much as you win. So, and if I see anybody with a sub 500 record and they present them as top 5, like, oh, they're the number 5 contender and they're 2-3, I'm like, why are they even there? It's like those are the things. Is like, this is where in professional wrestling, if knowing that the fix is in, right? You don't have to do a top 5, meaning you can show records for, like, let again, it's for one or two things. You can either show it for the people that win often, or you show it for the people that lose often, to show the to tell those stories any which way you want to. The people that are 500, they're the record in and of itself is not going to be able to tell you a story. The pro and the thing that can leave for somebody who, if you want to call it, they want to present it as sport, it's going to give them, at least for me, I look at it and I'm like, all right, if I see Santana and Ortiz and they're being purported as being top tag team stars, but I look at their tag team record and they're whatever 5-4, I'm like, okay, I don't see them as top stars. I see them as middle of the road guys. If you don't show me a record for those guys, but you just present them as top guys, then I'll buy it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I see that record underneath, I'm like, well, what the fuck? If these guys are being presented as top dudes.
No, absolutely. It can be tricky. Absolutely.
So this is where it's like I have those moments where it's like I watch and I'm like, I'm trying as best I can, but it's a matter that you want to go I know you want to do it across the field and be consistent with everybody, but the thing is that in doing so, for some guys, and I'm going to use some, I think I'm being generous when I'm saying some, I'm thinking it realistically it's probably most, showing the record is not helpful. It's just not. It's helpful to some. The top acts, it's very helpful because it enhances what, if you look at a guy like Moxley and his record is like 12-2-1 or whatever, something like that. That's impressive. He's overwhelmingly won more than he's lost. But don't show me a record for like a Trent Beretta and he's like 7-13. I don't need to see that. I love Trent Beretta. Don't show me that record because you make him look bad. But when the bell rings, he's awesome. But that just doesn't help his presentation.